Well, the backlash on this game is something fierce, alright? What's up everyone, my name is Don, and we can't even get past the opening credits without it chugging along. So, Jedi Survivor. This game got released last week on April 28th, and I've been hearing good things about it, saying that it's a better sequel, or just a good sequel to the first game, and then the game got released, and boy was that a major turnaround. Now, I think that Jedi Survivor overall is the better game than Fallen Order, but we do have some issues. Some major issues. So where do we begin? Oh! No warning, just straight up flashbang grenade to the face. That's kind of bad if you suffer from photosensitivity. Now, good thing is that's the only bright flash in the game. The bad thing is, and I sound kind of pedantic, it does that every time you boot up Jedi Survivor. So just be forewarned to play this game in a well-lit room or on a smaller screen, at least for that one part alone. And maybe this planet too, Koba can get pretty bright in spots. But anyway, here's Jedi Survivor in action. And the combat is pretty good in this game. That is the best part about Jedi Survivor, and by extension Jedi Fallen Order. Silky smooth combat. And there's no dumbass plot excuse of, oh, Cal Kestis lost his force abilities because he knocked his head over a rock or something and he has to relearn them. No, he's got all of his force abilities from the previous game. The push, the pull, saber throw. He's even got the mind trick now, which is pretty interesting. The abilities you do learn in this game compound to the abilities you already have, which makes Cal a pretty deadly force to be reckoned with. No pun intended. A new addition to the Star Wars sub-series are stance changes. You now have 5 unique stances to choose from, and you can only have 2 of the 5 styles equipped at the same time. The single-bladed lightsaber as well as the dual saber make a return from Fallen Order. The single blade being the most balanced, and the dual saber, while lacking some power, is great for crowd control. Dual-wielding lightsabers has its own unique stance, and while the quickest lightsaber stance you can have, it is also the weakest.
You're friends with Grease, right?
Yeah.
If he asks about the 50 credits, say, may or may not owe him, tell him I left the planet.
I think I'll stay out of this.
If you won't lie for strangers, who will you lie for?
The next saber stance to talk about is the blaster stance. Oh man, I love the blaster so much in this game. Cal will have the saber in his dominant hand while the blaster's in his offhand, and I can tell you for a fact that he turns into John Wick. It's a sight to behold when you have a room full of bad guys and you have the blaster stance equipped, so that way you can pick off the weaker enemies and save your saber for the rest of them. That creature just popped in out of nowhere. That's something you have to deal with in this game, a lot of texture pop-in and enemies just showing up out of thin air. I am playing this on PlayStation 5, which I heard is the least problematic of the ports, but that's not really saying much because this game did crash on me on a couple of occasions. Every version of this game has optimization issues, the PC getting it the worst.
Passing through. You're hunting for sounds?
That's right, man. Dee Dee's been all over these glider calls.
Oh, it's sounding great. You know, Kailoon Saloon down in the outpost is starving for some live entertainment.
Might not be a bad call. Dee Dee swore one of those beasts gave him some side-eye. Yeah, we're in. We'll catch you back at the outpost.
See you there.
Okay, so we just recruited Ash Javi and DDEC. There's a bit of a home base type mechanic that's in this game, and it's okay. I haven't really messed with this feature much, but there's a garden in the home base, there's an aquarium, and you can also shop there too. You could get new clothing items and new hairstyles, and if you really want to dress like Dash Rendar from Shadows of the Empire, you actually can. But no, getting back to my point with the issues. Actually, no, getting back to my point with the lightsabers, because I cut myself off twice. There's a final 5th lightsaber stance, and that's crossguard. Just imagine Kylo Ren's fighting style from The Force Awakens and onwards, and just this very brutish, heavy swinging combat style. It's a good lightsaber stance for one-on-one duels, but you have to take into account how slow it is. There's a bit of a learning curve. But with the high attack power and the high defense, it more than makes up for its sluggishness. And it's also the first time we actually get to see a lightsaber with hilts in a Star Wars game. Now, as for the performance issues, every version of this game has its own sort of jankiness to it. The game's frame rate fluctuates anywhere from 20 to 50 FPS. Cutscenes in particular, whenever you're about to go into a cinematic, sometimes they jump frames, like crazy. And Kobo, this planet right here. The frame rate dips whenever there's a high amount of foliage. It's not bad in this area, but once you get into the more foresty areas, oh boy. And it's even like that on Coruscant, the first planet you visit in this game. And kind of more understandable for Coruscant because that's a huge megacity. But for a foresty planet like this, it just seems kind of odd that the frame rate would take a hit for something like this. But then again, it's depending on the console, and PlayStation 5 seems to be the lesser of the two evils, or three evils in this case, but still. There will be patches coming out, and hopefully the patches will fix all of the issues. But that's wishful thinking. I just want the game to come out as perfectly as it can. And those are really all of my negatives with this game. Everything else is competently made. Like, the lightsaber combat is really good. Exploring around is really good. It's just the frame hitches. It's really awful in that regard. And that's understandably a deal breaker for some players. Just imagine if Jedi Survivor was released on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, with how gargantuan these worlds are. Man, that will set the whole neighborhood on fire. And speaking of gargantuan worlds, you can mount creatures in this game. That's going to be very useful for getting around. That is if you're not using the fast travel, which that's also an option in this game. You just need to locate a meditation point for you to put on the map when you do fast travel.
There! Good as new. Whew, what a wingspan. I see why they call you gliders.
Alright, so I'm gonna change my stance to the crossguard, which is my least preferred stance in this game. I really only pull this out for one-on-one duels or big bosses. Each stance has its own strength and weakness to it, except for the single blade, which is pretty much the jack of all trades. And the lightsaber should technically not even be heavy. You know what, I'm not even gonna explain the science behind it. Here's the blaster form in action, and again, pretty versatile form, even though it's kind of weak in the strikes. Actually, now that I think about it, I may have gotten the damage scaling on the stances wrong. Earlier, I mentioned that dual-wielding lightsabers is the weakest form. No, it's actually the blaster. But the blaster does compensate for its extreme range. And you cannot throw the lightsaber while in blaster form because, well, you already have the blaster in hand. That would be kind of overkill if you did throw the lightsaber and shoot enemies too. But every other stance does have some sort of form of lightsaber throwing. I think the best lightsaber throw overall is either crossguard or dual wielding, because with the crossguard you can break their shield like nothing else, but with dual wielding you can throw both lightsabers one after the other. And it's very satisfying. Jedi Survivor is a game where you're pretty much encouraged to play however you want. And the first game was not quite like that. I mean, it was sort of like that, but it was definitely more rigid than, say, this. Like in this game, for example, the first 3 stances are unlocked within the first hour of gameplay, and then the other 2 stances come within 3 hours of each other. And that's not to mention the added customization on lightsabers, the customization on Cal, BD1. I'm not sure if you can customize the Mantis in this game like you can in Fallen Order, but I don't really customize the Mantis anyway, so I don't really miss it. In this game's story, I actually love this game's story. It gets to the point way quicker than Fallen Order's story did. And that's not to say that Fallen Order's plot is bad, it's just this game is a bit more impactful, I guess. There's a lot more room for character development in this game, and I kind of enjoy it. And I'm getting my ass kicked by this Wampa creature right here, which is not actually a Wampa, it's something else. But I forgot them. I'm bad with Star Wars creature names. This is not a Wampa, I swear. But yeah, storyline is good. I'm not going to spoil too much, but it definitely gets more intense towards the end. And I'm definitely interested and want a third game to come out because I want to see where this story goes from there. Just make the third game's frame rate better, please. It definitely needs it.
Well done! What a show! Come here, my warrior friend.
I haven't seen such fighting since the championship.
We are in your debt.
What are you doing out here?
We were out looking for the biggest, strongest beasts to fight each other. Winner take all. Within our Holotactics game table, of course.
Holotactics, huh?
That's right. And you have just helped us gather beastly data for our game. Just as soon as we find a place to set up shop, of course.
My friend might be interested. He runs Pyloon Saloon.
Ah, yes. The saloon at Rambler's Reach.
That dump? I didn't realize it was open. Well, tell you what. We're more than happy to bring Holotactics to Pyloons. Could liven up the place. Let us make haste, Tully Moo.
All things in their own time. Bima.
See you around.
And we just recruited more folks for the settlement. I gotta try this feature out more. I only really planted some stuff in the garden and played this game called the Jedic, which is basically Star Wars chess, holographic chess. It's the same game that R2-D2 and Chewbacca were playing on the Millennium Falcon in Episode 4. And this is where BD1's scan feature becomes more than just a journal entry. The more enemies you scan on the field, the more enemies that will become available on the chessboard. So be sure to scan as many beasts and stormtroopers as you can, because they might be available for the Jedic later. So what I did is I had like 23 minutes, but I cut the footage to when I get to a boss, because I was just endlessly exploring everything. This game has that effect on you. When you think you're getting on the beating path of the story, you just find another cave, and then another cave, and then another cave to explore, and god damn it, how many caves does this planet have? This is probably the biggest Star Wars game I've ever seen. There's no way the planets are this huge. But they are, somehow. And there's 4 planets, but they are extremely big. The only exception is really the final planet in the game, but that's just a boss fight, so I'm not going to count that. Every other planet is big. And whenever you go into cutscenes, that's when the frame rate dips. A lot.
Bounty hunter. Haxian Brood tracked us down.
You know, the strange thing is the cutscenes still look amazing even though the frame rate shits the bed. But anyway, here's Korej Lim here, who is one of the many bounty hunters with a name but no face. Yeah, he's one of those characters. You'll be facing your fair share of bounty hunters, including Boba Fett, who makes an appearance somewhere in this game. I haven't gotten to him yet. And something tells me he's going to be the hardest secret fight in this whole entire game. And speaking of secret fights, remember Ogdo Bogdo from the first game? Yeah, he makes a reappearance, or rather a spawn of Ogdo Bogdo, and he is the freaking hardest boss fight in the entire game. It is actually kind of cheap.
Oh, nicely done. Name's Cage Vander. This Mudscuffer picked up your trail outside the outpost.
Cal. Sounds like you've been watching us.
We've all been watching, Cal. Not every newcomer introduces themselves by taking down one of Ravis's boys, which, by the way, nice touch, rather big entrance.
Thanks. So what do you want?
What I want, Cal, is to reward you for every one of these that you take down. Not the only one who came to Kobo for a little peace and quiet. Take these off, bounty hunters, and I'll trade you something nice.
So he was Haxian Brood. More bound to be on the way.
Exactly. Lucky for you. I've got eyes and ears about. Drop by the saloon, and I'll help you get a jump on those hunters.
All right. I'll think it over. Everybody Everybody's got rockets except me.
Yeah, Cal, get a rocket, please. But here's another feature that was added to Survivor, and that's bounty hunting. You can hunt bounty hunters, which is kind of... It's ironic, but it's still kind of cool.
Dagon's retreat. So you didn't feel like helping me out there?
For free? I don't think so.
Wow, Keish, you're a dick. But I guess she has her reasons. I still gotta do that side quest. I will be doing a dedicated Jedi Survivor playthrough within the year, or next year at the earliest. Maybe May, like always. I still got Fallen Order to do, as well as 10 other games before I get to this one, so... yeah. The year is pretty much booked with games that I need to get to. And I don't even know what these enemies are supposed to be. They look like the Stephen King Langoliers or something. And other than the hairy meatball creatures, you got this beast, which is definitely the worser of two evils. And I might as well talk about this now. This game does actually have an arachnophobia setting to turn on and replace any spider enemies with some other creature, which I still have not seen the point of this because I barely ran into any spiders in this game at all. It's a nice feature for those afraid of spiders, yes, but I still haven't ran into any arachnids yet. And I know for a fact that I have the setting off. Honestly, a game that would have benefited from an arachnid setting was Uncharted 3. Goddamn, those things in that game were ridiculous. But getting back to Jedi Survivor, how does this game even fare? I would personally wait for a price drop. It's a good game, but it is broken. Even more so on the PC. So whatever you do, get it on PS5 or Xbox. And even then, you'll still probably run into some issues, so I'm just hoping that Respawn Entertainment and EA can fix the game as soon as possible.